Sugar
Go
Diaz.
ahead.
No
Do
longer a New York Met. There we go.
Oh, yeah, baby.
Done.
Yes.
Done, Sugar.
Woo!
I'm done with you. Good riddance. See you later. We got to
I
move on.
love
We got to
that.
move on with our lives, and so does David Stearns.
Dude, get the hammer out. Break that thing. Crush that.
That might have been...
Diaz, you're going to get booed when you come to Citi Field. I'm not cheering this guy. I can't. I feel like I got broken up with, right? I feel like I was legitimately broken up with from this guy.
Fans, voices rising up from the stands.
All right, welcome back to the Meet the Mets Fans podcast. I'm your host, Stefan, and I'm here with my two co-hosts for the first time on an episode. I've got Justin, I've got Sid. Welcome onto the pod, guys.
Hey, it's a sad day, but I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, Stefan, thanks for having us, man. I know you did a little rant early on today, and I'm happy to get on and we can kind of discuss as the dust has settled a little bit of what's going on with the state of the Mets right now.
Yeah, it is a sad day. And honestly, I had time now from my initial rant that I posted on Instagram and TikTok and everywhere else to now some more details have come out. There's obviously two sides to every story here. And I think everybody's going to have different opinions. But let's start with you guys. Everyone already heard from me. Sid, you want to start us off? How you feeling right now about Edwin Diaz to the Los Angeles Dodgers, 3 years, $69 million?
I'm fine with it. Best of luck. Thank you for the 3 years. We took on a lot to get him. Took on Robinson Cano's awful contract. I think, that trade looking back was good. And we got our money's worth. Prospects-wise wasn't that bad at all. So we're going to be definitely, down a lockdown closer. Devin Williams is okay, but I don't think he's going to do as good job as Diaz will next year. It's going to be rough. We'll see what else Stearns has up his sleeve. Getting Devin Williams was an insurance policy. I thought it from the very beginning, and it proves to be true because if we did not have Devin Williams and, Diaz walked, we would be scrambling. And Devin Williams would be in a really good spot to command extra money. So I feel like being aggressive with Williams was a very good thing for the Mets. Stearns, I'll give him some credit for that. Yes, $17 million per year for a guy with a 5+ ERA is a little much, but it is what it is. My opinion, relievers are up and down. I feel like Diaz, is an exception to that. I don't know. I feel like there's something that he did not want to be here. I feel like if you don't want to be here and you're just going to re-sign to kind of, go through the motions, and we don't want you here. We want guys to buy in to a team, There's definitely some toxicity in the clubhouse. I don't know what it is. Really good by the Mets to kind of keep it, outside of the media. But, I definitely feel like there's inklings dripping out, and I think we're going to find out more, maybe things as guys leave, you'd hear, different parts of it. But I think that definitely a little bit of a toxic clubhouse, and we kind of had to switch things up. So I'm all right with it. I'm not going to lose sleep. Thank you, Diaz, for 3 out of the 5 years, good years. 2 years where one was terrible and one was just lost. Crazy World Baseball Classic celebrations, nothing we could do about that. But all the best and good luck. Hopefully we get Pete to take him deep in the playoffs.
That's assuming Pete Alonso is on this team, Sid.
Man, I wish I had your optimism, man. When I heard the Diaz news, I was floored. I was at work when it happened. Obviously, most of us probably were at work when this was occurring. I'm not going to lie to you. For about an hour and a half, I shut down. I'm checking Twitter. I'm Googling New York Mets, right? Random things. What's going on? Is this true? Can this be real? Who originally sent it to me was a Yankee fan. I'm like, is this guy trolling? He says Diaz to the Dodgers. I'm like, no, this can't be real. Right before that text, it was Schwarber to Phillies. I'm like, oh my God. All right. I was like, this is like doomsday right now. Philly got better. The Dodgers got better. And the New York Mets, right, got worse. I can't sugarcoat it. Right? No pun intended with Sugar Diaz. But I was floored and I'm not happy with it. Right? I wanted Edwin Diaz back. I think a lot of Met fans wanted Edwin Diaz back. I think the New York Mets wanted Edwin Diaz back. And, for whatever reasons, there's been a lot of, chatter going on right now about potential reasons on why Diaz left. We'll find out, obviously, in the next coming days of what's true and what's not true. But there was something up, right? Like Sid was just kind of mentioning. Clearly, there was something going on. That 50-50 he mentioned earlier in the offseason. The fact that the Mets had this negotiating window that they weren't able to lock him up. I don't know if he got offended by the Mets saying, I'm only going to give 3 years. Basically, the Mets setting the market with Devin Williams, and then other teams kind of following suit. But it was a pretty big shocker for me, right? And we definitely have the contract details of what's been reported over here. Edwin Diaz signed for 3 years, $69 million, right, with the Los Angeles Dodgers. It's obviously a huge average annual salary, okay, of $23 million, the highest by any reliever in all of baseball. And it's deserving so. He is the best reliever in baseball, no doubt about it. And so, there's been some reports about what the Mets did, right, in terms of what their contract offer was 3 years and $66 million. But I think the big news comes in, did the Mets have an opportunity to actually match that and or compete with the Dodgers offer?
Yeah, it seems like they didn't. Right. It seems like David Stearns, when he made the offer to Diaz for 3 years, $66 million, said this number is negotiable, which obviously means the door is open here. Go see what you can get and come back to us. And Edwin Diaz reportedly never went back to the Mets to try to match that offer, which I think is telling, but it also could be as simple as what happened with Jacob deGrom, where he's in the room with the 2-time World Series champs. They're offering him more money than the Mets are offering him. It probably feels really good to be valued in that way and to be given the opportunity to compete for a championship on a roster that feels like it's ready to compete for a championship. Whereas the Mets roster really, really does not feel like it's ready to compete for a championship. Probably Edwin Diaz made a decision that he thought was in the best interest of himself and his family, and he made the decision to leave without ever going back to the Mets. Just a couple of things that you brought up a Yankee fan being the one who told you, Justin. A Yankee fan that we both know. Actually, I was at the bus picking up my daughter after I did the little rant and I posted it, and my neighbor across the street, Chris, who you went to school with.
Right.
He gets out of his car to pick up his daughter off the bus, and he's got 2 sets of tissues in his hand. He's got a Kleenex box about this big, and he's got like the little Kleenex napkins this big. He's like, which one do you want? And I'm like, oh man. I'm like, here we go.
It's unbelievable.
This is what you've done to us, David Stearns. You've given Yankee fans ammo to fire at us because you allowed this to happen. And that negotiating window is when this should have happened. The Mets should have locked him up. There never should have been an opportunity for him to speak to the Dodgers. You have a clubhouse that's in turmoil. Is Edwin Diaz part of the issue? I've never heard that. But you let this guy go talk to somebody else, and they made him feel really good about himself to the point where he decided to leave. I still feel like there's a lot of fault here with the Mets, but honestly, Edwin Diaz chose somebody else.
Yeah.
Right? Like he chose somebody else. And for what that's got to be.
Yeah, baby. Take it out.
Sugar
Go
Diaz.
ahead.
No
Do
longer a New York Met. There we go.
Oh, yeah, baby.
Done.
Yes.
Done, Sugar.
Oh.
I'm done with you. Good riddance. See you later. We got to move on. We got to move on with our lives, and so does David Stearns.
Dude, get the hammer out. Break that thing. Crush that.
That might.
Diaz, you're going to get booed when you come to Citi Field. I'm not sharing this guy. I can't. I feel like I got broken up with, right? I feel like I was legitimately broken up with from this guy. I love that.
Do you think there's going to be a tribute video? They were talking about this on The Fan. Do you think the Mets put up an Edwin Diaz tribute video the first time the Dodgers come to Citi Field?
It's too soon. It's too soon. I can't talk about this right now, right? It's still there, right? I haven't even been able to process this right now. Let's see where the Mets are at in the offseason. I'm sure cooler heads will prevail, and he'll get himself a tribute video, but I can't even think about that right now for Edwin Diaz.
Yeah. There's mentioning of Edwin Diaz potentially making this decision based on how his brother was treated when he was a Dodger last year, and potentially based on the loss of Jeremy Hefner, the pitching coach of the New York Mets. Any thoughts here on that legitimacy of Edwin Diaz's rationale for leaving?
Yeah, maybe there's something there. Maybe he didn't want to be here. Maybe he wants to be on the West Coast, There's maybe personal things that, the Mets really didn't have a chance. That's why they're aggressive with Devin Williams. I think Devin Williams, that signing tells a lot. It shows a lot. And the way how Nimmo got traded, he took a little shot at Stearns with the run prevention comment, but he said a lot of nice things about the Mets front office and the way how they handle stuff. Another thing is I noticed it's hard to for any leaks to the media. Like everything kind of is, under the table. Guys, have a level of respect for the front office. They don't leak things. Their agents don't leak things. The Mets do a good job internally to keep things in-house. So, there may be more toxicity or more issues with the actual clubhouse and the players versus the competency of the front office. So I'm willing to give the front office a little bit more rope. A lot of these guys that Stearns inherited may not be his prototypical type of player that he built a pretty strong team in Milwaukee that was able to contend for multiple years. Guys to get on base, high OBP guys, pitchers that have excellent spin rate. Like he's working through this roster. So I'm going to give him first year, took us to the championship series. Now, had a dud this year. I'm willing to give him some rope, a lot more rope. I feel like everyone's killing Stearns, and I don't know if it's warranted.
Yeah. Well, let's hear some. I think we got some fan reactions, right, Stefan? And let's hear like how MF fans think or what they think about David Stearns right now, and the Mets losing out on Edwin Diaz.
So the first one that we're gonna go with is from my daughter Samira. I picked her up from the bus stop. She came home. I'm sitting here working on the podcast. She comes into the office and she's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Let's record together. Let's get on together." So this is a little interview between me and Samira. Samira, what do you love most about Edwin Diaz?
When the song plays and he walks out of the bullpen.
Yeah. What's the song called?
The trumpet song.
There'll be no more narco at Citi Field.
What?
Edwin Diaz just signed a new contract with the Los Angeles Dodgers. He left the Mets. Is there anything
a little sad because of the changing thing.
They keep changing.
It changed.
They keep changing things. So now, Samira, the Mets closer is going to be that guy Devin Williams that we just signed. What do you know about Devin Williams?
We're gonna see if he's a real airbender.
What's an airbender?
It's when the person puts air out of their hands and they can make balls out of the air to sit.
Wow. So he can control the air?
Maybe. We're gonna see.
If he's a real airbender, do you think he'll be better than Edwin Diaz?
I think maybe.
Okay, so should Met fans...
I'll think about it.
Do we wish him best of luck, or do we say, good riddance, Edwin Diaz, we're mad at you?
We wish you good luck. I hope you come back on the team next year.
Nope, he signed for 3 years with the Dodgers. He left us.
That's brutal.
There's little kids in this world, David Stearns, that you are hurting their feelings with the moves that you made.
Yeah, that entrance was electric, right? I'm with her on that. I'm going to miss that. That is like, I feel like the Mets invented that. Other teams copied it, and it's definitely going to be missed at Citi Field, no doubt. Definitely going to be missed.
Yeah, end of an era. Like, we're in the transition phase. There's definitely upheaval. Hopefully, Samira gets over this one. But Diaz was definitely fun. I know the music, the vibes was excellent. At the stadium must have been amazing for her. And she's going to have those memories. But, she'll also understand more and more about Mets fandom.
Yes, it's a fandom of heartbreak and disappointment, my dear.
All right. Here's another video coming up from Patchman, live from Citi Field.
So I don't know if he's actually at Citi Field, but let's hear from Patchman.
Well, I just got home from driving, and it's pretty hard not to drive off the cliff right now. Very, very upset. Got to be point blank about it. Keep Pete Alonso. We already seen Nimmo go. We saw Diaz go out the door. Like, us fans, we don't value, like, our value is just different than what front office, because there must be a disconnect here. I was told, hey, run prevention. That's a very big thing, David Stearns. Well, I don't know, but how about a guy who is dominant in the ninth inning, prove that he can pitch in New York? And that's, to me, seems like a pretty good idea of how to prevent runs. But, hey, I didn't go to Harvard, Mr. Stearns, not like you. It gets me a little worried because now they may not want to go that third year. They could have went off and more to Diaz. They did not do that. Dodgers 3 years, only three years for us, 66 million, 69 million. We couldn't give a couple more $1 million. Diaz shouldn't have to come back and go, hey, let's say back and forth game. You don't play that game. If you want your guy, you go get your guy. You go get your guy. That's simple. Pete Alonso's available. You go get him. I can't imagine an offseason now without Pete Alonso. Because we know what the Phillies did? They went that extra year and gave Kyle Schwarber 5 years. Maybe a little too much, but they got that guy who could slug it and hit 50 home runs in that lineup for them. We only have to go 4 years. You tell me you can't go 4 years in Pete Alonso? What are we waiting for, guys? And yeah, Diaz, it's gonna suck. Let's be honest. The trumpets out in LA. The Dodgers are the team that we have to beat to get to the World Series. Very, very frustrating right now. Offseason isn't done. Gosh, off to a terrible start. Let's go Mets. Hang in there, Mets fans.
So that is Patchman, one of the characters of Citi Field, who comes out all decked out, jacket filled with patches all over Mets patches. And he sent that over to us on Instagram today. So thank you, Patchman, for sending that in.
Yeah, I think that's a reaction by a lot of Met fans. I think it was a little bit of a shock to hear the contract details. I think most Met fans, when they first heard Diaz to the Dodgers, assumed that, oh man, Dodgers must have given him in that 5th year that the Mets were not willing to do. And then it came out that it was a 3-year contract. And I think that's what was triggering for a lot of Met fans, was the fact that that's what Stearns wanted. He didn't want to go anything above that 3 years. That's what the Dodgers gave him. And somehow the Mets don't have Edwin Diaz anymore. And I think that is, for a lot of Met fans, the biggest shocker that we had here, as the news kind of came out. All right, next up, we got Sean in Wanta. Let's hear what Sean's got to say.
Guys, I love watching you. Great job with the podcast. Sucks losing Edwin Diaz. Let's get Robert Suarez signed. Let's have a frontline closer, move Devin Williams into the 8th inning, and let's secure the bullpen. Also, Pete Alonso, stop this nonsense. Get him signed. Have a Christmas gift. Have a little Cody Bellinger as well. Guys, great job. Be watching you all the time.
Sean and Wanta.
Yeah, I would agree. Robert Suarez sounds great, but I don't think that's the move. I don't think Stearns is going to spend $17 million on Diaz plus another $20 million on another closer. That would be close to $40 million in bullpen arms. He's not. I personally think that going into the season, Williams is going to be given the opportunity to close. And my dark horse candidate end of the year, I think Christian Scott will be the closer for the New York Mets. And I think he will be the long-term solution at that position. And
you are such a prospect hugger. You love prospects. Christian Scott is going to be the closer of the Mets. You want to definitively say that live on this podcast?
Like, I feel like he's a strike thrower. He has essentially what they need. And he's coming off of Tommy John. And I think the right way to handle him would be to give him a year in the bullpen, a la Adam Wainwright, who, and then you could figure out, where his career goes. Coming off of Tommy John, young kid, you take it easy with his arm. Don't churn out 200 innings or 150 innings as a starter. And I think he ends the year as the closer.
If Christian Scott is the closer of the New York Mets, by the end of 2026, the New York Mets are not winning more than 74 games, Sid. All right? I'm telling you right now. That means this season was a epic collapse. If Christian Scott is our closer, that's not what the New York Mets need right now. They're going to have a payroll upwards of $300 million. There is no world in which Christian Scott should be the closer of this team.
It wouldn't mean that Williams failed, and that's what you're saying. You're saying that Devin Williams is going to fail.
Oh, God. Please don't. Don't do it.
No. That may be the case. It may be just he would be better at a 2-inning stints, how he's been used in the past. Maybe he'll get some saves, 2-inning saves, and then we won't see him for a couple days. But I feel like it will be a closer by committee. Regardless of who they sign, that's what we're looking at. I do not think Williams will come in and, have 40 saves.
All right. We'll go to the next fan take, and we're going to keep talking about Christian Scott as the closer of the Mets.
Are we going to keep talking about that?
I mean, if it ends up happening, we're going to have to come back to this moment and play a drop of Sid saying that.
Oh, my God. This would be the worst day in Mets history if this happens. We lose Edwin Diaz, and Christian Scott gets named the closer of the Mets.
Not all on the same day.
Closer to the end of the year. That's what I'm thinking.
I see.
All
right.
All right. Our next one is going to be from Corey in Nyack. Let's hear from Corey.
As elated as I was last year when the Mets grabbed Soto is as angry as I am now. In fact, this is as angry as I've ever been as a Met fan. And I think it's part because of the expectations now. I don't live in a Wilpon era anymore. And the whole point of Steve Cohen is that this is not supposed to happen. You could sell me all you want on Pete Alonso and him not being worth a long-term contract, and I get that to an extent, but there is no excuse for this. Not when you're talking about run prevention, not when he is the best closer in baseball, when he's beloved by the fans, when he's a huge identity of the team. You cannot let this guy go. And I don't want to hear now, well, he didn't give the Mets a chance to match. They would have. They don't need to be cute. He is your beloved player. He is the best closer in the game. He's essential on a team that does not have starting pitcher that goes long, that relies on the bullpen to the extent that would have made a Devin Williams signing brilliant if Devin Williams was the eighth inning guy. Now it looks terrible because you're relying on that guy as your closer who cannot pitch in the postseason. Maybe he had an off year in New York. He did get better. But again, he did fold in the postseason last year. So I don't buy this. We could build a bullpen in a number of different ways. I'm pretty furious about this situation. He is a huge part of the team, the identity itself. Not that identity is everything, but when you're the best closer in baseball, and there is this theatrical performance to go to a game and the trumpets blast and everyone's excited, that matters. And it's finally, we had one of our own. And it's just so hard to watch teams like the Phillies go out and do what needs to get done to keep their guy in Kyle Schwarber. And then 2 seconds later, we see that the Mets get outbid by the Dodgers, a team that they are trying to emulate and overtake. And if they want to say, well, he really didn't want to come back here, that's all crap. That's Mets spin. Maybe he didn't want to come back because he felt disrespected because the Mets could have made him an offer weeks ago of, say, 3 years, $75 million. There was no need to wait this out and see what other offers he got. That's disrespectful. He's a huge part of the team. I am pissed off at this. This is David Stearns, his Milwaukee attitude. The whole point of you being here is showcasing those supposedly brilliant tactics in Milwaukee, but now having access to Steve Cohen's money. And Soto was great. You had nothing to do with that. So I'm furious about the situation. We'll see what the rest of the offseason brings. Maybe, they get Scooble, they sign Bellinger, they keep Pete. I don't know, but I am irate about this situation.
Yeah, that's a serious reaction right there. He said something where I don't know if it's fair, right? I know we're emotional right now, which I totally understand, but I don't know if it's fair to say that Devin Williams can't pitch in the postseason, right? This past year, he didn't let up an earned run for the Yankees. Yes, he let up a run. It was an inherited runner that he let up, okay? It was not his runner. And so I don't think it's fair to say that Devin Williams can't pitch in the postseason, okay, guys? I am still optimistic about this guy being an elite bullpen arm. He has proven it for 5 seasons. He had one bad year, and I'm not willing to just say this guy is terrible. And I'm glad that David Stearns was not willing to say that as well. Obviously, gave him a contract, right? That I think is, when we look at it, it's pretty reasonable now, right? Like, in terms of Diaz is better than Devin Williams. I'm not saying that right now. But what I'm saying is that Edwin Diaz's contract is going to count for about $21 million this year on the books. There's a little bit of deferred money for the Dodgers. Devin Williams also has deferred money plus a signing bonus. It's only counting about $12 million towards the books, right? So you're talking about a $9 million difference between Diaz and Devin Williams. And if you're telling me that this guy is almost half the price of Edwin Diaz in terms of what's going to be on our books this year, I think it's actually a pretty good signing when we sit back and we actually think about what took place here.
Yeah, I will speak really quickly on the statistics of Devin Williams in the playoffs. He did pitch really well for the Yankees in the playoffs. I really think that Corey was referring to prior, maybe with Pete Alonso taking him deep. The year prior to that,
Pete's a stud.
Pete's a stud. But Devin Williams' career ERA in the postseason, which is with very, very minimal numbers, is 8.53. He pitched 0.2 innings and gave up 2 runs in 2023. In 2024, he pitched 1.2 innings and gave up 4 earned runs. So in the limited time that he had prior to last year, not great in the postseason. But last year, 4 games pitched, 4 innings pitched, no earned runs, right?
Correct.
Talking about the chef's kiss from Pete, and I think that savings should go right back to Pete. The $9 million in savings, that's it, right back at you.
Yep, I'm with you on that.
This next one here is from our guy Joey Bow, great supporter of the pod, helping get this thing off the ground, always sending in screenshots of headlines and things like that. Joey, tell us what you think about the Mets losing Edwin Diaz.
Yo, what up? This is Joey Bow, finally tuning in to Meet the Mets Fan podcast. It's been a long time coming, but this is my instant reaction to the Edwin Diaz signing to the Los Angeles Dodgers, or should we say the Los Angeles deferrals. I'm gutted by this. I don't understand how David Stearns can't offer Edwin Diaz, one of the best closers in the league, if not the best closer in the league, $5 million extra. I don't understand how this makes us a better team with Devin Williams and Marcus Semien. So you choose Marcus Semien and Devin Williams over Edwin Diaz and Brandon Nimmo. I get we weren't winning with that core, but how does this make us better? I just don't understand it. I can't comprehend it. I'm gutted. I've said it a week or 2 weeks ago, Steph. I think David Stearns is trying to make me revoke my Mets fandom. I don't see the vision for this team. I don't see myself being at 20 games next year like I have been year in, year out. And this just tells me that Pete Alonso is out the door as well. I don't see Pete Alonso on this team anymore. David Stearns is treating this team like the Milwaukee Mets. He's trying to be the smartest man in the room, and he's looking like the dumbest man in the room.
Here's Anthony from Fresh Meadows.
You know what this is? It's the cure-all for anything David Stearns does in any kind of decision-making that he ever has done, will do, or has done in the past. It is unacceptable for us to lose Edwin Diaz on a 3-year, $69 million deal to the Los Angeles Dodgers when we offered him 3 years, $66 million. But it also came to light recently that part of his decision to not play for the Mets anymore was that he was upset that we fired Hefner at the end of the year, which is understandable. Everybody was upset about that. He wasn't the problem. But don't worry, we have Devin Williams, who we signed on a $51 million deal, including his signing bonus, which doesn't get added to the official numbers that everybody sees of $45 million. And last I checked, his ERA last year was up in the upper row at Citi Field, and Diaz, his ERA was so low you'd have to dig into the ground to find it. But what do I know? This also means that Pete Alonso isn't coming back. He's not going to want to play for a team that is getting rid of every piece of heart, gut, and glory that this team has, and spend what's probably the backside of his prime years playing for a team that's struggling to rack up the W's. This move, coupled with the Nimmo move, is one of the worst off seasons I can recall in my 37 years of being a Mets fan, because it is going to lead to the departure of Alonso. And if I'm wrong, I'll eat my words, I'll eat my crow. I'll be super happy if he resigns. But at this point, I think it's a foregone conclusion. He's not going to want to play for a team that got rid of 2 out of 4 of its star players. Maybe Alonso's one, depending on how he plays for the next 2 or 3 years. But he's not getting a 5-year contract. The rumor's already out there. He's going to be lucky if he gets 4. And not for nothing, Stearns is penny pinching, trying to play Moneyball yet again. But don't worry, guys. We're getting that casino that nobody asked for. And, you know, that's cool, though, right?
Cheers to him, huh? Yeah, that was a lot from Anthony, right? Very passionate. You know, he talked about like the core of the Mets getting split up. You know, this might be by unpopular opinion, and I'm not saying that I feel this way, but I'm saying that from a Stearns perspective, yeah, sure, they're getting rid of a lot of their core guys, but where have those core guys taken the New York Mets, right? Like when we really look at the New York Mets' success over the last 5 years with all of these core guys, we've had one deep playoff run. And, you know, some people said it's lucky, some people said it's grimace, some people said it's OMG, right? But these guys, when we really take a look at the core of the New York Mets, have really not brought much success for this team. If we are trying to truly be a World Series contender every single year, Stearns maybe reflected on this and said, maybe this is not the team or the group of guys that I think is going to take us to that next step. You know, maybe that's some of the thinking here.
I just can't imagine like this. Like he said, shake up, and it shook, right? Like this roster is being shaken up for sure. I just don't know what my fandom even looks like moving forward. Like who are my favorite players on this team right now? I don't know who's here anymore. I don't know what this team is going to look like, and it's going to be really difficult to figure out as a fan who are the guys that you're rooting for on this team. But The one guy with the answers is David Stearns, and we waited for our recording of this podcast for David to speak on SNY. Justin, I know you got a chance to listen to it. I listened to some of it. One of the questions he got asked is, does the Edwin Diaz signing, potential signing, right? They can't really speak on it because it's not official, but the reports of Edwin Diaz signing with the Dodgers, do they impact the decision-making on Pete Alonso?
Yeah.
And what? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying, Stearns came out and kind of talks about how he doesn't believe that one signing or one not signing would impact another like roster spot, especially a different position. And right. So he views these all differently, all these different entities. So a bullpen arm is not going to be impacting whether or not the Mets are going to be going after a first baseman per se. He's looking at it like holistically. He's looking at it as a whole, where it's a, hey, my team needs X, Y, and Z to be successful. We need to do this, this, and this in order for the Mets to come together for what he believes to be a successful offseason. And so I some Met fans, right? I heard a lot of the reactions. It was, we just lost Diaz. You better give us Pete. Okay. And I think that's a lot of the sentiments that are going on right now with a lot of Met fans sitting at their house.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I think as Patchman said it, or one of the other fans said it, what this looks like without Pete Alonso on this team. But David Stearns promises that Met fans are going to be happy with the roster when all is said and done. He is confident that the moves that are in the works, the moves that are going to be made by the end of the offseason will produce a roster that we could be proud of. And that's what he needed to come out and say, right? Saying anything other than that is obviously admitting defeat. He's not going to say anything other than that. But now he's got to put his money where his mouth is. He was asked, do you think the winter meetings are more of a groundwork type of deal? Are you setting deals up, or do you think that there's a possibility that deals get done here at the meeting? And he pretty much said, like, it's a long off season, but there are substantial discussions happening in free agency and in trades. And he expects that some of these things cross the finish line in the next week, 2 weeks, or 3 weeks. And it's been a waiting game with David Stearns in this approach, but I think Met fans need to have their concerns addressed.
Yeah. And that kind of segues into the next question that got asked. It was that, what type of discipline do you now have, right? Every single Met fan right now wants a reaction, or every single Met fan wants the Mets to now go do something else, okay? Oh, we didn't get Diaz. What are you now going to do instead of getting Diaz? And Sid alluded to this before. You better take that $9 million savings and you better give it to Pete Alonso, right? And so he was asked that question, what type of discipline do you have to have? And, he talked about, having this important focus, right, on quality acquisitions, not being too reactionary. Sometimes headlines don't always win games. And I think that that's true for David Stearns. I think he's a very even-keeled guy. I don't think that the media is going to influence his decision-making all that much, right? I think Steve Cohen can be influenced by the media's and fan base, but I don't think David Stearns is influenced by those types of things.
You have your convictions, you stick with them, and, you paid you for your philosophy and your track record of success. And, for him to switch it up to pander to what, the media or the fans want is, shows a backbone. And we respect that.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. Another question there posed to Stearns was they asked about, has there been an unusual amount of trade conversations? And he said there's been a lot of focus in the industry of essentially a need for need type of situation, meaning that one team has a certain need, another team has a certain need. Let's match up, let's pair up, kind of with the Nimmo Simeon type of situation that the Mets were able to do with the Rangers. So he said there is a lot of focus on that right now. He said there's a lot of teams that are trying to compete this year. There's a lot of teams that are now looking at the needs of their team and saying, hey, what are the strengths that we have? What are the weaknesses we have? Let's try to pair up with the teams that have the opposites of those things.
Steph has brought up this name multiple times, Jaron Duran from the Red Sox. Just thought Viento's bat in Fenway would play really nicely. So who knows? Maybe there's something there that's cooking.
I mean, I'll take that. The one thing that I will say about Edwin Diaz no longer being the closer of the New York Mets is that money is now there. It is now available. It's clear that the Mets were going to offer the Devin Williams contract and set aside that money, but also offer the Edwin Diaz contract and set aside $23 million, $22 million for Edwin Diaz. I don't know what the approach is now. Is it a lesser closer? I mean, it's obviously a lesser closer. There's no one better than Edwin Diaz that was out there. So you're going to go with a lesser closer. Is it the Robert Suarez type that's going to cost similar amount of money to a Devin Williams? Or is it someone more along the Pete Fairbanks, the Al Finnegan type of player that will cost you a little bit less, but give you some support in the back end of the bullpen that you can trust? For me, there are a lot of things that the Mets need to address. we need an outfielder. We need Pete Alonso back, or someone to replace his offensive production, but hopefully it's Pete. And we also need starting pitching, right? We've got a closer. It's Devin Williams. Whether we like it or not, he's the closer going into the season. I'd rather see them spend this money to fill out some of the other aspects of this roster that we have no idea where these guys are coming from.
Oh, $22 million was the amount they were willing to spend on Diaz for this upcoming season. I would pose this question to you guys. Would you rather have two lesser relief pitchers or spending, $18, $20 million on a Suarez, the next tier guys? Or do you think you just forego it? Just say, we'll go figure out the bullpen. We'll sign a couple guys. I personally would rather have three guys on $6 million contracts, 6 to 8. And then, you figure it out. You just kind of load it up with quality arms and then see what happens versus going all in for like a $20 million offer to Suarez. That's just what I'll do if I was the GM. But what do you guys think?
Yeah, clearly the Mets value Diaz. Clearly they like that idea of that 8th, 9th inning, right, being these locked down with these two relievers. David Stearns attempted to do this in the trade deadline as well, right, for the New York Mets, right, when they acquired Helsley, and then they obviously had Diaz. So he clearly values having multiple high-leverage pitchers late in the game. And so I can see what you're going with, Sid. I know that Stefan, I was talking to him earlier, right? He kind of had similar sentiments to you. I think they're still going to try to get one of those big-time guys as another insurance policy, especially because there is this question mark of Devin Williams and whether or not he can be successful as this closer, as I think most Met fans are sitting there right now questioning. And so if you are able to get yourselves another potential closer, I think that just, again, is an additional insurance policy for Devin Williams, and it makes the New York Mets better, right? Let's be real here. I don't think anyone can complain about having two elite arms in the back end of games.
Yeah, when we were talking about getting Edwin Diaz, Pete Alonso, a potential Bellinger, and then signing a starting pitcher, all of that happening in free agency wasn't going to be possible with the amount of money allocated. Without Edwin Diaz here, I'm definitely in the camp of I'm rolling with Williams as my closer, the Airbender. Let's get him a cool theme song and some lights, and we'll roll with him out there. Hopefully he is the guy that he was 2 years ago, and I'd like to see that money allocated to filling out a starting pitcher. I want Michael King signed to this team. It seems like the Mets had a meeting with him, a Zoom call, to discuss contracts with him. Stearns is saying there are things in the works. Hopefully this is one of the things in the works. He's a guy that's pitched in New York. We know that he can handle it here, and he's going to be on a Stearns type of contract, a 3-year contract, which, by the way, Justin, you brought this up. David Stearns loves 3-year contracts, right? So anyone who's willing to accept a 3-year contract should just call him.
It is so weird, right? Like he must play the lottery and just play 3 the entire time, right? He's just like 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. It's like, you can't select 3 more than once. He's like, nah, I'm good. I just want 3 as my lottery ticket number, okay? But yeah, this guy, it's 3 years. It's 3 years. It's 3 years on all of these contracts, right? If you look at the last offseason, you had Minaya, 3 years. Clay Holmes, 3-year contract. They want to offer Pete Alonso, 3-year contract. They want to offer Edwin Diaz, 3-year contract, right? They want to offer a starting pitcher, 3-year contract. It's pretty crazy. And honestly, I know that, Sid, you alluded to this before, that, the Mets are pretty buttoned up and pretty tight-lipped in terms of what they're doing, and that is true. But the reports of the Mets not wanting going past 3 years for Edwin Diaz, that was spot on. Like that couldn't have been any more accurate. And I think that there's a 3-year offer right now to Pete Alonso. Allegedly, the Mets made a 3-year offer to Kyle Schwarber for 3 years, $120 million last night. He wound up taking the Philly offer 5 for $150, but apparently the Mets offered 3 for $120. This guy and the number 3 is unbelievable. I don't know what's up with that, but this guy he's got this weird little fetish of 3s, I think, man. I don't know what's going on.
3 for $120, if that's offered to Pete, he better take it. I don't think that market. If Schwarber declined that, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe he just doesn't like the Mets. But enjoy Philly.
Stearns loves the number 3. Maybe he needs to renegotiate his contract with the New York Mets after his 3rd year. If he's not producing a quality team, maybe he needs to take a hike. We'll see what happens here. This is year 3 coming up for him. You think everything gets done in 3 years? Everybody should be on a 3-year contract. If he has another year like he had last year, he'll be shown the door as well, regardless of which university he went to.
Yeah, no doubt. down.
So that's going to wrap us up here on episode 10. Obviously, a disappointing day in Mets land, but the New York Mets need to move forward here. There is still one more day of the winter meetings. There's all of tonight and all of tomorrow. Hopefully, we are back on here for episode 11, delivering better Mets news than we've gotten today. But that's going to be it for us, everyone. Have a great night. Let's go Mets.
Let's go Mets.
Let's go Mets.
Meet the Mets fans, voices rising up from the stands. Hear their cheers, hear their groans, feel their highs, feel their moans. Stories untold now on the mic. Mets fans.